Okay, is it officially 5 o'clock? That means we've got, what, approximately 75 minutes between us and dinner and or cocktails. Not necessarily in that order, is that correct? Wonderful, which means I assume we will not be penalized if we finish slightly early. Is that the correct assumption? So anyways, as some of you probably know, what we did was we actually offered a guarantee. We guarantee that this is probably the liveliest presentation at 5 o'clock at this conference on Tuesday. And we will work hard, won't we, Mike?
Definitely.
We will work hard to meet that guarantee. So thank you all for coming. How's the conference been so far? Oh, come on, you can do better than that. How's the conference been so far? All right, you did about the same. All right, consistency, that's the mark of good project management. Well, welcome. In case you're not sure if you're in the right room, today we're talking about BI, real world reporting. My name is Andrew Levinsky, no relation to Monica. Over here is my partner in crime. Never used that joke before. Over here is my partner in crime, Mr. Mike McLean.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you. From Microsoft, we will be splitting the duties today to give you hopefully a wonderful overview of the reporting options available with Microsoft Project Server and, of course, SharePoint. So that's our goal. We have another presentation tomorrow, which is a continuation of this exercise. Now, the other thing I would like to point out is that we have a blog. Well, not a common blog. I have a blog. Mike's team has a blog. So everything we will show you today has been blogged with screenshots, instructions on how to recreate all of this. We will give you the link after the session. Feel free to go there. So if we work through the demos pretty quickly, that's okay. Because again, we will give you the instructions on how to do everything we're going to do today. Now there is kind of a minor caveat to that. You see, last night we actually figured out how to hack into the speaker survey system. So you accessing our respective blogs is contingent on you going into that speaker survey and giving us an excellent rating. So I just want to make sure that we set the ground rules. Everyone's got this, everyone understands? Everyone's comfortable with that? Good. Okay. Wonderful. So moving on. Today what we're going to do is we are going to skip a stone over the surface of BI, Project Server BI, and actually Project Server BI and SharePoint BI are essentially synonymous because what we're using are SharePoint services to deliver business intelligence in Project Server. So today we're going to talk about Visio services, Excel services. How many of you have actually used Excel at some point in your life? Right. I know most of my clients could probably survive with just a license to Excel and no other software on their machines. Business connectivity services. Woo! Anyone using that? Yeah, okay, a couple, not bad. And then we'll talk a little bit about Performance Point. We're going to get into decomposition trees today. Tomorrow, then, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about Power Pivot. We're going to talk about creating dashboards in Performance Point. And we also have a couple other exciting things to show tomorrow. So that being said, as you probably figured out, this is me. My contact information's up there. The blog URL, which we will be showing again at the end of the presentation, and I'm assuming the slide deck will be available for download at some point. So we've got that. I am, of course, an MVP. I work with a small company by the name of UMT. How many of you have actually visited our booth in the pavilion? Wonderful. If you haven't, please stop by. We're actually offering an Xbox drawing, so make sure you get registered for that. And anyways, UMT has been around for over 20 years. Now, obviously, looking at me, I have not been working at UMT for 20 years, 15. We've been working in the portfolio and project management space. We created a little product called Portfolio Manager, which was then acquired by Microsoft. It became the genesis of the portfolio analysis module that you now see in Project Server 2010. Work with a number of clients managing over $35 billion in portfolio, or we assist them in managing that. And we also have a wonderful product And feel free to stop by our booth called Project Essentials, which, and Mike, please cover your ears when I say this, is Project Server the way it was meant to be? Don't tell anyone at Microsoft I said that. Project Essentials provides all sorts of enhanced financial capabilities to Project Server, as well as a graphical workflow interface, and I believe we've got some presentations on how to develop workflow in Project Essentials, as well as a slew of other wonderful features. So that's pretty much it about Project Essentials. Please stop by our booth. We'd love to talk to you about it. We would love to talk to you about it apparently a little bit longer. All right, and also we also now have Mr. Mike McLean. So Mike?
Great, thanks Andrew. Just to remind you, you couldn't have Project Essentials without Project Server. So.
Of course.
All right, so just a little fun. So this is me. My name is Mike McLean. I'm a senior program manager with the Microsoft project team. I work in the engineering org up in Redmond, Washington. And just to prove to you, I'm actually from Seattle. I tried to get a picture of me on a boat wearing the North Face with the Space Needle in the background. Okay, so it is sunny. Yeah, that's a little, okay, throws it off a little bit. But you know, the clouds, Office 365, all that. So I've been at Microsoft for about 7 years. Like I said, I work on the project team now. Most recently, I helped ship Office 365, where I owned several areas in SharePoint Online. So it was a lot of fun launching that over the past year. Before that, I shipped a few products in various orgs with both Dynamics and the Office team. Did some work on performance point services, and before that, some financial reporting products as well. So this is the link to our project team blog. We'll be releasing some postings over the next few weeks that cover some of the demos we're doing today, as well as some of the demos tomorrow as well. So definitely keep an eye on that. With that, I'll hand it back to Andrew.
Okay, wonderful. And Hans, thanks for coming, by the way. We were going to wait for you, but they wouldn't let me. No, we're good. Thank you. Thanks for coming, though. Wonderful. Okay. So before we get started, we didn't want this presentation to be a one-way delivery of information. We wanted this to be a two-way exchange of information. So one of the things I like to do as part of this presentation is provide feedback. One, provide feedback to us to make sure that what we are delivering meets your needs, and two, since we've got Mike here on the stage, delivering feedback to Mike to let him know what features you like and what features you don't necessarily like or think can be improved. It's always wonderful, a little dangerous sometimes. To do this, we need a volunteer. And I'm looking around the room looking for a volunteer. Barbara, thanks for volunteering. So this is Barbara, a fellow MVP, who has volunteered to assist us in this endeavor. Barbara is going to be our barbarometer. And the way this works is you will provide feedback, and she will rate your feedback on a scale of 0 to 10. We will take that, we will note that, and we will use that for continuous quality improvement for the next iteration of this presentation. So to set a baseline, because we're all project managers, and that's what we like to do, to set a baseline, let's say that I just showed you the worst feature in all of Microsoft Project. This is a feature that is probably mislabeled, and if you click on the button, it will delete all of your data and send an email to your boss telling him how incompetent you really are. All right? How would you respond if I just showed you that function? Let's try that again. How would you respond if I showed you that function? Okay, so that, Barbara, is a 0 on our scale. All right, now, let's pretend I showed you the best feature you have ever seen in Microsoft Project. You click the button, it manages your entire schedule, sends emails out to your resources, takes all their input, generates the most beautiful, eye-catching reports you've ever seen, all just by clicking a single button. How would you respond if I showed you that? Wonderful, okay. So anyways, Barbara, that's a 10. Got it? So we're going to rate between 0 and 10. We're going to see how we can do. Maybe we'll get a couple 10s. Maybe we'll go for an 11.
All right, let's try
Never
it.
know. All right. So first off, the obligatory, let's just kind of run through some information, make sure everyone gets caught up. We're all on the same page. So this is obviously a project conference, hence we're talking about Microsoft Project Server. How many of you are actually using Microsoft Project Server, think about using, plan to use, have used at some point? All right, most of us. Great. So Project Server drops the data into two repositories. So we've got a reporting database, and we've got what are called the OLAP cubes. And I'll be honest, a lot of my clients don't use OLAP cubes, and we'll talk about why in just a little bit. Today's session will be generally reports pulled from either the reporting database or the OLAP cube. Tomorrow, we're actually going to do a mashup where we pull in SharePoint data and Excel data as well, and we generate some calculations based on that. Now, when do I pick one over the other? Now, the reporting database, it's pretty simple. Typically, you go to the reporting database when you've got questions that refer to the present. How many projects do I have right now? How much does my portfolio cost right now? How much work do my resources have right now? So we're looking at pretty much a single point in time. Now, there are exceptions to that. You can pull your baseline, your time phase baseline data out of the reporting database. But essentially, that's when you would use the reporting database. Now, when do you use the OLAP cube? The OLAP cube typically is used when you start asking your question, not only do I want to know how much it costs right now, but when will I spend this money? How much did I spend last month? So that's when you would go into the OLAP cube when you start asking, when you want to start throwing in a time-phased element to your queries. You know, what's a projected future workload? Those are the sorts of things you would go into an OLAP cube for. So we've got these two reporting repositories. Now, what's wonderful in Project Server 2010 is now I can actually create sets of OLAP cubes. So I can create a set of OLAP cubes that are configured by department. So each department within Project Server could have its own set of OLAP cubes. And within that set, we have 14 OLAP cubes that we can then reference. And Mike and I will be showing you different reports that pull data from those OLAP cubes. Great. So these are our data repositories. How do we actually generate reports from these data repositories? So what tools do you all know, or do you all use right now to generate these reports? Excel. Everyone uses Excel. What else? Reporting services, SSRS. There's only two products. What? Performance Point. What else? Visio. Great. So that pretty much covered all the basics, right? And that's what we'll talk about today. We'll take our source data. We will use different authoring tools. So we'll go through different authoring tools to generate a report. Some of those tools, of course, Visio, Excel, pretty much everything everyone just said. Oh, back to BCS. Business Connectivity Services we'll be demoing for you today. You look very enthusiastic about that. Oh, yeah. Or skeptical, I can't tell. Somewhere between the two. All right, excellent. We will not be talking too much about SSRS in this session, just because typically SSRS is a developer topic. Now, non-developers, of course, can develop their own SSRS reports, and some of you may have seen that there's actually an SSRS report builder that is downloadable, but we decided, given the time constraints, that we just couldn't spend all the time talking about SSRS, so we will leave that out of the scope of today's session. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, with all these options, how do I pick which one is the most appropriate for a specific use? Is that what you're all thinking? Yes, that's what you're all thinking. And that's our goal today, is really to provide you some guidelines as to when you might choose a specific reporting tool. Luckily, Microsoft, in all their infinite wisdom, have provided us with this poster. So as you can see in this poster,
I don't think they can see it in here. Can you make it a little bit bigger?
It's a bit of an eye chart. All right, if you can just kind of squint from the back. What you see is Excel services. You think I should make it a little bigger?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's try to do that.
So this is a chart in Visio. And I'll tell you what, let's go over here and tell you what I'm going to do. I'm in PWA. Many of you have seen Project Server 2010 at this point, at some point, right? All right, so let's go into our Business Intelligence Center. And within the Business Intelligence Center, I'm going to go down to Sample Reports. And luckily, I've actually loaded that specific Visio document into SharePoint. Now, what does that mean, that I've loaded a Visio document into SharePoint? Well, now with Visio 2010, I actually have an option to save directly to SharePoint. And not only that, it renders within the SharePoint page. So what we can do is we can then navigate within it, and you can see all the different elements within Visio in the browser. And again, Mike, cover your ears for this one. This means that folks who consume Visio documents don't need Visio licenses. They can just go on the browser. They can interact with it. And it's nice because look, I can move it around. I can zoom in and out. All, if my mouse actually worked. Oh, there we are. Let's get the mouse pad. There we are. All right, so I can zoom in and out. I can manipulate it, and I can actually look at when I might want to use all these different features. Now, the link to the poster will be available on our blog posts, or my blog post coming up shortly after the session. You don't need to go out and find it. I don't need to provide the link. It's all up there. Great. So this is Visio Services. What else can we do with Visio Services? Well, to show you what we can do with Visio Services, I would like to do a bit of a mental exercise. You all up for that? Yes, of course you are. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to look to the person sitting on your left. Everyone knows left, right? Good, okay. I think we're still working on some of us. If you don't have someone sitting on your left, look behind you. Look to the person sitting on your right. Now, if you still feel comfortable doing so, I want you to close your eyes. And if you don't feel comfortable doing so after looking at the people sitting next to you, that's perfectly fine. I understand. So now that you have your eyes closed, I want us to do a mental exercise. I want you to visualize something. I want you to visualize your organization's portfolio of projects. Visualize it in a way that makes sense to you. Create an image in your head of what that portfolio looks like. Does everyone have that image fixed in their head? Yes? Still working on it? Okay, good. Well, let me show you an image that I came up with, and I should point out that my daughter actually helped me with this. So we decided that this would make a wonderful image for a project portfolio. Right? So we got dancing bears. And I will say, well, no, actually, yeah, we do have a dancing bear. I also believe that this may be the only presentation at the project conference with dancing bears. So anyways, how do we model our portfolio using this picture? Well, that's a good question. What I can do now is, with Visio, I can actually connect Visio to a connection. And in this case, we've actually already created a connection. So I'm going to go browse back to my BI Center. And let's see if we can remember the URL. .com, BWA, project, BI Center. And what you see here are data connections that I've created previously, and Mike will talk about those in more detail in a little bit. And I'm going to go into these data connections, and I've actually created a data connection that works for me, that already contains the data that I need. And now what I see are those projects. Let me zoom in a little bit. These are all the projects from Project Server pulled into Visio, and I can now link those projects back up to Shapes in Visio. So let's go back here. So I'm going to drag my new Zen reports up there, my compliance system I'm going to pull up there, and what you see is that little chain link icon which shows that the projects are linked to Shapes in Visio. Visio, by the way, being, I believe, the most underutilized reporting tool in the Microsoft repository. And what I see now, if I zoom in, is it's actually displaying data for each of those projects. And that's live data pulled from Project Server. Now let's zoom out a bit. Let's modify this to show something that's maybe a little bit more useful. So I'm just going to highlight everything. And let's change our data. In this case, I'm going to edit the existing ones just to keep it simple. So we want to show the project name. And I'll tell you what, let's change cost from just a number. Actually, let's change it from a number to a data bar. And we're going to set that as a speedometer. And we're going to set the speedometer from 0 to 200,000. And now what I get when I zoom in is that my projects are showing with speedometers, basically, or gauges, or however I want to set it up in Visio that show me the cost or the variance or any sort of metrics around the project that I'm looking for. All right, that's exciting. I can see your excitement. Now, what we're going to do now is, like I said, we're just going to go to File, Save and Send, Save to SharePoint. I've got everything set up. I'm going to save it as a web drawing now. And the minute I save it, any minute now, it will get rendered in SharePoint, and then again, I can browse it, interact with it in SharePoint. So let me show you what that looks like. So now I've got this in SharePoint, and I'm just going to enable the refresh. Let's zoom out a little bit. And what you'll see is, as it refreshes, there we are. Well, let's zoom back in a little bit. All right, what we can see is I can manipulate it, and now I can actually expose the shape information. So as I click on a project, it's actually showing me the data for the project. So I can interact with it. So let's go back to our bar barometer, if we could. How do you feel about this in terms of that 0 to 10 scale? Let me hear you. Okay. Barbara, what would you call that? That was a 9? Oh, you're an easy grader. All right, so I know this is exciting, and I know that you all want to go back to your boss and go back to your organizations and do these pretty reports with dancing bears, because it's frankly what we all want to do in life. But probably you need something a little bit more practical to use, right? Well, let me show you a couple examples of some Visio reports that we've ginned up. So let's see, sample reports. So I'll give you a couple examples here. First off, this is something a client asked me to develop a while back. Oh, well, ignore that. That's the wrong one. Let's try that again. That's the one I wanted. So what I have here is a portfolio timeline. I took all my projects, dropped it into Visio, color-coded it by department, and now they shift based on the project dates. I can open up that Visio document, refresh the data, everything shifts out. It's all showing dynamic data. How's that on the bar barometer? Yeah? Okay. So you could do a portfolio timeline, or you can also use the Visio timeline feature, and you can create, I don't know how many of you have seen the beautiful timeline feature in Project Client 2010, but you could recreate that same effect, or even with more detail, in the web using the Visio timeline feature. And I know a lot of clients ask me for this. Dynamic data. The only caveat I would throw out is that Visio services can't handle the calculation of moving shapes along the X and Y axis in Visio services. It'll refresh data, so the dates will refresh, but you actually have to open it in Visio for the shapes to actually move around on the timeline. Again, we'll post the link, the template. If you want to develop this on your own, we've got all the instructions for you. So let's give you another example here. In this example, this is an example that Neil is going to enjoy, because Neil and I worked on this one together. What we've got here is a map of Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. Wonderful place, especially in the winter. And on this map, we have different wellheads. And I don't know how many of you are in the oil and gas industry. I'm from Houston, so obviously I spent a fair amount of time in it. And in oil and gas, or in drilling, typically you've got a drilling rig, and it travels around to the different well sites, and it does maintenance, and it drills. So what we have here is we created the drilling rig as a resource, going around to the different wells. I pull the dates out in Project Server, and I can represent them on a map. Now, this is just a representation. This doesn't represent actual wells or anything like that. But what you can see now is I can move around, I can navigate in it, I can open up the shape sheet, I can click on a well, and I can expose data. Not necessarily just Project Server data, too. You can combine any sort of data you would like to generate this sort of map. Now, how does this work on the bar barometer? Okay, what would you call that? Like I don't know, I can't interpret that. 6? That was a 6? Okay, that was maybe a 6. Think we could do better than the 6?
I think we can do better.
Yeah, I think we could do better than the 6. So anyways, that's Visio services in a nutshell. You can actually do a whole lot with non-traditional navigation. So if you're looking at rendering a project report or program or portfolio report, but without a table, some sort of geographic navigation, something like that, the Visio services is excellent, and it's actually quite easy to use. So with that being said, let's see here. There we are. With that being said, let me hand it off to Mike, who is going to walk you through Excel services. Mike?
Great, thanks, Andrew. All right, so what is the #1 most commonly used end-user reporting tool? Excel, okay, I think everybody's used this before. Great, so today we'll walk through using Excel and Excel services. We'll cover the Office data connection files, like Andrew mentioned. We'll explain what these are, why they're valuable, and kind of what they provide to the users. Then we'll actually build a couple of reports up here on stage, and then we'll use Excel services to publish those to SharePoint. And then lastly, we'll show you something called the Excel REST API. So this is a little piece of functionality that has a very fancy name that actually adds a lot of value to any type of status reports or presentations that you can build. And I guarantee you'll run back and try to implement this to impress your team. So with that, let's jump right into the demo. Don't want to waste any time here. So I'm going to start with a blank Excel sheet. And what we'll do is, let's see here. Wait for this to come up.
Let's actually just grab that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to build a report in Excel. Normally, if you needed to hire someone to build you a timesheet report, it might take, like a couple days for them to develop it and put it together. So I'm going to try to build this in minutes. All right. So.
And I'm going to time you.
Yeah, you're
so
going to time me. We're
going to see how long it takes.
Okay. So I'm going to hook up to some cubes that are available as project server out of the box, and we'll see how long this takes. All right? All right, start the timer. Okay. So I just have to go to Data, From Other Sources, From Analysis Services. And here I'll enter the server where I'm going to pull my data. And here I can select the database. So here I'll just use Project Server Demo. And I have this whole list of cubes that are available. So we'll select the EPM timesheet. Give my ODC file a name. We actually create an Office data connection file during this process, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Then I just have to hit OK. So here I have a pivot table. If you're familiar with pivot tables, you can actually start selecting the fields from your cube. So here I can just drop in my actual billable work. I'll add my resource list. I think it's a bit farther down here. Let me see. Wait, sorry, my mouse is all over the place. Bring over the resource list. Great, I can see my resources. And lastly, we'll look at our timesheet status. All right, so I'm going to drag, let me see, timesheet status up to the columns. Let's see how that looks. Great, so I can start seeing what's pending. And, well, just like that, I've got a list of resources. I can see the hours that have been approved, what's in progress, anything that's pending. So how long did that take?
Like a little less than a minute.
A little less than a minute. All right.
2 minutes.
All right, cool. So, so if I have this available now, we can start adding some formatting. We can add some conditional formatting. Maybe I want to add some data bars. So I can drop these in. These are approved, so we'll make those green. This data is still pending. We'll flag these as red. Format this a little bit. So now I have a real basic timesheet. I created this in minutes, and I have this report. How does that rate on the barometer? All right, probably like 5, 6.
Well, Barbara, what do you say?
8?
No.
Okay, a little bit higher.
No, I'm going to, oh, well, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we've got this report. I'll show you real quick the Office data connection file that we created. So if I come into Data Connections, Properties, Definition, let me stretch this out and zoom in a little bit. Here, you can actually see that it's data sources / timesheet / ODC. I can actually open up any other blank Excel workbook, point it to this ODC file, and my users could start building additional reports as well. They don't have to walk through and find the database server or pick a cube. All that would be configured. because I've got all that information available for them. So we'll show you a couple more of those in a bit, but that's the ODC file for this report. So we have this report. I can look at it, and that's great. I've got it on my machine. If I want to start sharing this, I can come up to File, Save and Send, Save to SharePoint. And here I have a link right to my sample reports in my BI Center. So if I double-click this, now I actually can decide where I want to drop it. So here I'll just leave it in my sample reports folder, but I have a few options for how I publish this. So using Excel services, I can decide whether I want to publish the entire workbook, specific sheets within that workbook, or if I have multiple pivot tables, charts, whatnot, I can select individual pivot tables. So that's pretty useful. I think I'll just select the sheet 1 to show you how that works. And I'll leave Open with Excel and Browser selected. And let's just drop this in as a document. And we'll wait for that to open. And there's my Excel report. Great. So it's in IE. I can come out here in my browser. I can view my report. And like Visio Services example, I don't need the Excel client. So it's kind of a huge win for the users. How does that rate, you think? All right.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here, if I may. What? You're missing a step. How so? Right. Okay. I'm going to jump in here at this point, though. Let me just see a show of hands. How many of you are actually using timesheets in Project Server? So what do we figure, 40 to 50% of the room? Okay, and the rest of everyone doesn't have any data to report on? What? Tasks, milestones, finish variance, costs? Some people are reporting on costs, right? So I would like to, and let's put a challenge to Mike here, I would like to see some reports that rely simply on task data, that don't rely on timesheets or cost. What do you got for me?
All right. Well, it's probably fair because there's probably not a single report that doesn't have some type of a major milestone with tasks associated. So we'll come back here to the project client then. And what we'll do now is we'll actually create a project in Project Client, and we'll publish a report up with some tasks. I have a template available here. What we're going to build is a report that shows you actually which stages of your project are going to enter your stage gates on which date. So this report will have, and this is something that you could build if you have multiple projects. I was talking to a customer today that has hundreds of projects, and they kind of follow a similar format. So if you have a template that you follow or whatnot, you can create a report here that can give you a list of all your projects and the exact dates they're going to enter each of your milestones. So this is a template that we saved into the project client. And the only thing we did before this presentation was we created a custom field in Project Server called Major Milestone. So it's a pretty simple process. You just do a new field, and then we have a lookup table for Major Milestone as well. And that provides a few different options. I decided my projects have maybe 5 stage gates and a start and a completion. So for this example, we'll set a date. Can somebody give me a day? Barbara, what's your birthday? You don't need to give me the year, just the day. What's the day? 15th of February. All right, great. So we'll enter 2/15.
Right after Valentine's Day.
Okay. We'll just do continue. We're going to move to task start dates. All right. So I'm going to save and publish this up. Actually, let me take a baseline real quick because we're also going to look at our variants. We'll do entire project. All right, so we'll publish this up now. So I'm actually going to, let me see, hold on a sec. Oops, I'm going to specify a name. Yep, put in a name.
It's the project that will not be named.
We'll call this Barbara Project. All right, great. So we'll save this and publish this up. And now I'm going to come back to my BI Center. All right, so I'm going to scroll down to my documents, navigate into my data connections folder. And out here in the BI Center, you'll have a folder for the language that you install. And this is Project Server Major Milestone Report.
And I'm going to jump in here and just say that out of the box, you get a number of these data connections as part of the Project Server 2010 installation. Now, all the queries we're using today have been posted to the blog. You're welcome to download them, and they're definitely available.
Great. So in this scenario, we had an Office data connection file that we created. It pointed to our project server instance. Here's Barbara's project. It already pulled in with the date that we added, so that's great. So this is actually live data that we're working with here. So I have this flat list of projects. So here I'm just going to insert a pivot table into a new report. All right, so now it's really as easy as dragging down project name. Let me see, we'll pull task finish date over here. And then our major milestone, which is our custom field, we can drag to the columns. So this looks kind of funny. That's on purpose, because we haven't formatted our finish date. If you ever add dates to your pivot tables, here's a little trick. You can convert it to max, and then select date, and it'll update that. And we'll clean it up a little bit. See, we're going to remove our total across the rows, because we don't need to total our dates. And just like that, I have a real quick report that has a list of projects and then the dates that it's going to enter and exit each of my milestones. How do you like that? So, pretty cool. All right, but I think we can do better.
We can.
We can always do better, right? All right, so this is great, but depending on how the projects are progressing, we may be a little off from actually hitting those dates. And since we've set baselines, we've captured that data, we can actually plot this against the variance. And depending on how close we are, we could color code this report and have it show red, yellow, green. All right, so let's walk through that. So we're actually going to have some fun here. So I'm going to insert another report. It's almost identical. So we'll drag down, we'll just add project name. This time we're going to add variance, and then we're going to add major milestone to my column labels. So this is the variance. So you see some stages were on track, some we have a variance of 9, 22, whatnot. So now on my major milestone report, I can actually add some conditional formatting. So we'll walk through this. Now I'm going to add 3 rules, and we're going to base this on the variance. So here, I'll flip over to the variance sheet, and we delete the $ to make date, and we'll do less than 15. So if our variance is less than 15, we'll say it's green, because that's an acceptable variance. Okay? All right, so that's great. And then we'll just do this a couple more times. And don't worry about writing down all these steps, because we'll have these are on the blog as well. And same exact process. We'll do less than 30. We'll make these yellow. Okay. And then we'll do one more rule for red. Okay. Once these are set, you won't have to update these. Oops. Wait. Ever again. And this will do greater than equal to 30. That was the last one that we set. And we'll format this red. So that's red. Okay. Now the last thing that we need to adjust is how the rules are evaluated. This is kind of a demo of how conditional formatting works. And first we'll evaluate for green. Next we'll evaluate for yellow. If something's green, we can stop evaluating. If it's yellow, we'll stop. We'll update that. And look at that. All right. Great. So just to recap, what we just captured was we looked at the variance of how we're going to hit all those dates, and we color-coded this red, yellow, and green. It's updated. You update your data in project server, refresh your report, and these will be updated. So
now, how many of you are going to go back to your offices this week and implement exactly this report? Quite a few of you, maybe in 2 weeks after a vacation, of course, yes. I don't know any organization that really wouldn't use a report like that.
All right, so I think those are a couple of good examples. I'm actually building reports here. We did the timesheet report, the major milestone report. We'll show you a couple of more reports. So this is the Bay report. So this is an interesting report you can build on project server data. I think most recently, we had a scenario where a government contractor used this, and this tracks the tasks that you're completing versus the tasks that you actually set out to do. So if you say you're going to complete one task and you complete one task, then you have a Bay of 1. Otherwise, if you say 2 and you only complete 1, then you start building a backlog. So this actually shows how the backlog is being generated, and then if you actually complete more tasks than you set out to do, then you're actually offsetting the backlog. So this is the Bay report. So it's a report that you can maybe go out there and read about a little bit, but Project Server can definitely generate this report.
And most recently, I actually used a report like that for an ERP cutover project. I don't know how many of you are involved in ERP cutover. I know John is. Where basically we had 2,000 tasks over a 2-week schedule, and we were looking at a daily report of how many tasks we missed from the previous day and what our growing backlog is for that cutover.
All right, so here's another quick example of a cumulative milestone performance report. So this is data that's pulled out of Project Server, and here we're plotting the actuals against baselines and looking at the planned work. And this is plotted on a monthly basis. So depending on how the baselines are taken, you can generate reports like that as well. So I think that this is great, but with that Excel report and what Excel Services offers, there's actually one more scenario that we can walk through, and that's the REST API. So to give you a brief overview of the REST API, this is something available in Excel Services where if you have an Excel workbook like we just generated with those graphs or with pivot tables, you can actually construct a URL that points directly at one of those report components. So it's kind of unique, and that URL looks like this. So my PWA site is accessible here at projectcontoso.com/PWA. Then you have the Excel rest.aspx. Then you can see here we drill directly into the resource report.xlsx and then to the chart that's within that file. So as long as you know where your Excel report lives in SharePoint, you can build that URL pretty easily. And again, we have steps on how to pull that out.
And this is all out of the box, by the way. So if you actually have something posted in Excel to SharePoint, you've got this. You just may not be using it.
Right. So just kind of show you what this looks like. I can copy that URL that goes directly to a chart and render it right away in the browser. So it's pretty cool. There's no Excel file, no nothing. I'm looking directly at that image. So that's pretty cool, right? But if we take that URL and, another scenario, I think, is there anybody in this room who has not had to generate a status report or a presentation? Okay. All right, so if we have a scenario where we have something like PowerPoint, we can take that URL, we can insert picture, you can drop that right into the file name, and here you can decide whether you want to drop it in just a snapshot of that image. If you insert it, you can link it, so it always has to pull it from Excel Services, or you can insert and link, which I think is the best option. And there's your image. So just like that, you can drop your image into a PowerPoint presentation. And actually, it looks pretty good. So that's what that would look like if I had a graph for my Project Server data. So pretty cool. All right. Okay.
And I know what you're thinking at this point. Does it dynamically refresh? And the answer is yes.
Yes, it does. All right. So let's show this with Word. All right. So we'll do insert, quick part, field, and select links and references. Include picture, drop in our URL, and there's my image, just like PowerPoint. So pretty good. Now I can start typing other things in my status report. Maybe I want to include some other information, and luckily, since my pivot tables have exactly the same functionality, you probably know what's coming here. I can drop my data in as well. All right. So, and of course, you can adjust the formatting and kind of clean that up a little bit. But so here, I've actually pulled the image from my Excel file, all the data from my Excel file. I didn't have to create a new Word report and copy that data in and like retype things. It's pulling everything from Excel. So if Excel updates, Excel Services can pull this data in. Now, as a project manager, right, I might just need to like correct some of this information just so I don't, confuse my stakeholders if this isn't quite going to start on 1/5. Like maybe it's going to start in March instead.
Because we don't want to confuse our stakeholders.
Yeah. We really don't want to confuse
never.
them. So, I might just update that and send that out. But when they get this report and we F9, we refresh it, and it pulls the most current data, it updates automatically. So it actually preserves the integrity of the data as well. So it ties that back to the source, and it's always consistent. So great. So that's the REST API.
Let's see how that ranks. How does that rank on the bar barometer? Yeah? All right. That was good. What do you think that was? You got to give me a number. 9? 9.5 maybe?
All right. Cool. Getting there. Okay, great. So that's the REST API, Excel services. Now I'll hand it back to Andrew to cover business connectivity services.
Right. Thank you. All right. Now we're on the tail end. We've done Visio. We've talked through Excel. Let's talk business connectivity services, which obviously, or I think from a show of hands before, not a whole lot of folks are using. Now, when would you use something like business connectivity services? How many of you are using SharePoint lists in some way, shape, or form? Okay, so quite a few of us. And I'm assuming that many of us actually have a list of projects in a SharePoint list. I can't tell you how many clients I've walked in where we say, well, where do you have your entire project inventory? Well, it's a giant SharePoint list, maybe 1,000, 2,000 tasks, et cetera. And we come in and we implement all the project server goodness. And I think we've all been there. You implement Project Server. It's wonderful. It's got resource management. It's got Excel and REST and all this stuff. And the users go there, and their first response is, yeah, I really like that SharePoint list. I like that navigation. Why do people like SharePoint lists, right? I can create a personal view. I can create my own views in that SharePoint list. I can save them. I can manipulate the views. I can group. I can do all sorts of things. I can add filters. A lot of people are just more comfortable using SharePoint lists. So what we can do is we can actually take project server data and incorporate it in a SharePoint list type format, which also gives us some other advantages. So let me walk you through how you might do this using business connectivity services. Let's go back to our laptop. Let's close out of Excel. We don't need this, or Word, actually. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually opening up a product called SharePoint Designer. How many of you have actually opened up SharePoint Designer at some point? And we all know that PWA is kryptonite to SharePoint Designer. You can't actually use it to modify the PWA site itself, but we can use it to modify other sites. So we don't actually have to put the results of this onto our PWA site. So great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create what's called an external content type. Now, I'm not going to walk you through every step in creating an external content type because there's really no need to. It's actually pretty simple. Once you've done it a couple times, it really only takes you 5 or 10 minutes to create one. And what this does, and let's click on the project, or actually, let's go with the risk type. What this does is we create the links in SharePoint to go into a line of business application. It doesn't have to be project server. If you have your data in a database, we can go into it, we can generate a SharePoint-like list. So if you've got accounting systems, PeopleSoft, there's all sorts of ways you can use this to bring data into SharePoint. In this case, I'm using risks, because this is a typical challenge. I know a lot of people go on the forums with this question, which is, how do I generate a single risk list of all the risks across all my different workspaces? I know many of us have had this problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the project server database. We're going to generate the risks as an external content type, and we're going to surface this in SharePoint. Now, tomorrow, we're going to show you a different method. Today, external content types. So I've created this already, and now all I have to do is let's go back to PWA, and let's just navigate back up to PWA. In this case, let's go down to our Business Intelligence Center. And I've created, this page right here. Let's go back to that. There we are. So I've created a site, a typical workspace. I assume most of us have created SharePoint sites at some point. And what I'm going to do now that I've created this external content type is I'm going to create something called an external list. so all I have to do is generate a list, and you'll see I have a list type called external list. And I'm going to call this my, actually let's start with our projects. We're going to do our project list. Projects, always a good thing. And we're going to link it to our content type. And we're going to create a list. Pretty exciting. I can see how excited you all are. The anticipation is just incredible. It's going to be worth it. There we are. So now we have a list of projects. What can I do with this list? Well, I can go modify the view, right? So I'm going to modify this view. And I want to group projects by department. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to group by department. I can group by any field I want. I just have to add the field to the external content type. And I can make any changes. I can do totals, subtotals. I don't know how many of you have struggled with subtotals in Project Center. Some of us have, I can see. But now I can see how many projects I've got in what department. I can expand that. I can click in there. This gives our users who may not need the full project server functionality the ability to navigate through the system. And now, for the most exciting part of this, it's now subject to search, which means I can type a project name in the search engine, and it will actually bring it back. How does that rate on the barbarometer? All right. Great. Barbara? 6? Okay, well, let's see if we can up that a little bit. Tell you what, let's create another external list, and in this case, I'm going to go, again, view all site content, and I'm going to create a list. Let's see here, create. And this list, again, we're going to use our external lists. I'm going to create it. I'm going to call it risks this time. I'm just going to pull that content type that I created. Looks good. Again, we're going to create that list. I can create my own personal view in that list. There we have it. We have our risk list already. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify that, and instead of doing that in SharePoint, I'm actually going to use SharePoint Designer. Now, what can I do to modify a list view in SharePoint Designer? I can add such things as conditional formatting. So yes, you can actually have conditional formatting in a SharePoint list. What does that mean? I will show you the minute this loads. Any second now. All right. So we have our list, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add conditional formatting. I'm going to format each row, and I'm going to format the row based on what's in the impact field. Now we're going to do a very simple conditional formatting, greater than, say, 6. And I'm going to set that with a red background. Now what we can also do is use icons. So you can actually create icons in a SharePoint list based on the data in that list. So in this case, I'm going to just change the color to red. We're going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to save the view once it applies. All right, now I'm going to save that view. And now let's go back and refresh our page. I'm going to just refresh this. And now what I have is a conditionally formatted SharePoint list. I am now going to group it. So if I wanted to, I could just group this using the normal SharePoint functionality. And we're just going to group it by project, or yeah, let's group it by project. And now I've got my SharePoint list. I can navigate by project, and I can just expose it and see what are the high impact risks. Now, how does that rate on the bar barometer? Wonderful. Great. I think that was better than a 6. What was that? 9. A 9? Great. Okay. So that was business connectivity services. Now I realize we've got, what, 15 minutes left? So we've got one more thing we'd like to talk about, and that is Performance Point. I'll let Mike talk about that, and I know a lot of people are asking me before the break about Performance Point, and also note that tomorrow we will be talking in more depth about Performance Point dashboards. So Mike?
Great, thanks. So yes, Performance Point Services. Performance Point Services is an interesting piece of functionality available in SharePoint. Today we're going to cover building a Performance Point report against the project server data that's available in the project server cubes. We'll show you Dashboard Designer, and then we'll actually navigate into the decomposition tree. So if you haven't seen that, it's a real great piece of functionality. Let me flip over to the laptop. Let me see. Let's go to our demo. And I'm going to close up a couple of applications here. And all right, great. So we've got those cleaned up. So let me navigate back to the BI Center. So with Product Server 2010, since it's built on top of SharePoint, we actually can take advantage of the BI Center, which is available in SharePoint. So there's actually a business intelligence template. Like we said earlier, Microsoft ships a whole stack of Office data connection files out of the box that are already connected to various tables that can pull data into Excel. We also ship a whole set of cubes as well. Now those are accessible through the document libraries that are in the site here. But if you scroll down on the left, you see there's a link called Performance Point Content. So when I click that, I can actually navigate and create content with Performance Point Services that's then saved directly into SharePoint. So I can create Performance Point reports, KPIs, scorecards, indicators. And these are report components that are created, and then they can be navigated and viewed through IE or your browser of choice. So to create a new Performance Point content, I just come to Items, New Item. And here I can decide whether I want to create a KPI, a scorecard, a report, et cetera. What this does is it actually opens up the Dashboard Designer. I've already got that running here. But it's a click-to-run application that'll just be downloaded from SharePoint. So this will open up on your machine. And from here, I can actually right-click. Actually, if I select New Report from SharePoint, it'll already be loaded. But I'll open up the report option here. And I can decide to create an analytic chart, a grid if I just want to see a grid of data, Excel services view, for Clarity Analytics server pages as well. And the key here is that my reports are going to be built off of the data that's in my cube. So here, when I click the SharePoint Site tab, it actually renders the list of data connections that are in SharePoint. So this first one here is against my project server data. We have a few others for the timesheet cube and some other data. But I'll just use the portfolio analysis cube. So when I hit OK here, I just give my report a name. We'll call it project cost. And then on the right, I actually have a list of measures and dimensions that are in my cube. So dimensions are things like project list, departments. So for example, if I'm going to build this report that'll look at the project cost of my departments, I just drag in project departments. Now, I don't have any numeric data yet. I don't have any measures yet. But if I open measures, here, these are all the measures that are calculated in my cube. So this is already set up for me. And I'll just drag over cost. And I get a square. Okay, so nothing too impressive there. But I could actually change this. And if I want, I could make it maybe circle. Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. All right, cool.
I like that.
All right. Now, if I click on the circle, I can actually drill in to the levels that are in my cube. So here, the first level down, If you remember, I dragged departments over to my series. I can see finance, HR, IT, legal, operations, all of these. There's more customizations available depending on the level I'm at, so I could select different options here as well. But I think this is fine for today, so I'm actually going to save this up. And when I click Save, it's already connected to my SharePoint site. And now if I navigate back to where I had that performance point content, here we created a performance point report. And since it's a report, I can add it as a web part on any other page. I can view it directly. It would be added to the bottom of my list here. Let's see. I think there's project cost. So this is the new performance point report I just created in Dashboard Designer. Saved it up. It's in SharePoint. So now we have a page here. So now we'll walk through actually adding that report to a page in SharePoint. So this is a blank page. And I'll just come up to Page, Edit. And the first step is to actually add the performance point report web part. So here I go Insert, and I have to wait for web part to enable. I'll do web part. Scroll down here. There's a performance point category and performance point report. So it's a couple of clicks. This will be added to my page. And now it kind of walks me through. It says, all right, if you added the performance point web part, click here to open the tool pane. So here, I'll actually navigate out, and I'll select that specific report that we just created. Wait for this to come up. Let's see here. Let me click off and click back. Hello, performance point content. Okay, there we go. All right, so I had to refresh that page. It's kind of a page within a dialog, so there's a little bit of stage fright. Okay. And one more page. Okay, and there's my project cost report. All right, so we'll add that. And if I click Apply, everybody hold your breath. And there's my pie chart. All right, cool. So we've added that. Now I can stop editing. We'll save and close that. We're updating my page, and there's my pie chart. All right, great. So this was creating a report, adding it to a page. I have my pie chart. If I come back and make any changes to that report and performance point, if I change it to a bar chart or something, that'll be reflected in my page. So this is great. I mean, you can create all sorts of reports with performance point. If I hover over any of the slices, it actually tells me what the cost is, what percentage it is. But I think the real advantage is if I look at something like the IT department, and I'm like, wow, why is it over $6 million and it's 42% of my costs? Now we can actually get into some of the more analytical capabilities and take advantage of the decomposition tree. So this is the somewhat morbidly named feature in Performance Point. And if I right-click and select Decomposition Tree, this brings up a dialog here that has a blue rectangle for IT. So I selected the IT slice in my pie chart, and now I can actually click that, and I can kind of drill anywhere I want. So this is now reading the measures that are in my cube. If I want to drill into my, let's say my resources, let's see, I could actually look at my resource list, and I could say, well, within IT, I have product engineering. It actually shows me a quick summary here, as many as it can fit on the page. It says there's another, $1.7 million below there, another bottom 25. If I can scroll up and down. If I come back to IT, if I want to drill on something else, like maybe I want to look at my project list, I can look at my project list. So here's a list of my projects within IT. So now I can say, wow, my product accessory design is $1 million. Why is that $1 million? Well, I could select that. I can drill again. So here, maybe I want to look at my resource list now. So now I can look at my resource list as it pertains to that project. And wow, Sean Beasley, like, who is this guy? He's $387,000. So I can keep drilling into my cube. If If I want to look at the exact task that Sean's working on, I can drill into several different levels, technical product management, and I can just kind of keep going. So you really have a lot of data at your fingertips with the decomp tree. Now, one additional piece of functionality I'll show is that if I'm really interested in this data around projects, but this view is kind of hard for me to work with, I can hit this drop down, and I can select bar chart. And on the fly, I can actually create another chart just based on that project data. So I didn't actually have to go back to Excel or reformat anything. The resolution doesn't quite fit on the screen, but this is my list of projects and all the bars. If I want to see the data, I can flip over to the grid view, and I've got all of the data here for each of my projects and all of their costs. So how do you like that? Kind of neat? All right. Great. What would you say that is? What is that? Nearly on the top?
Yeah,
Good, because
9.5.
we're almost done. So this was a demo creating one report with performance point services using the dashboard designer, uploading this, navigating with the decomp tree. If you come back tomorrow, we'll actually show taking that report and building kind of a larger dashboard that can then be filtered and customized kind of for your end users. Great. So I'll hand it back to Andrew now.
Okay. So I realize we just got a couple minutes standing between you and beer, I believe, or beverage of your choice. So hopefully what you got out of today is an overview of some of the reporting options. Now, we can't go through all the reporting options in a 75-minute session because we would just run out of time. What we do want to do is let's just make sure that we actually got this knowledge in our heads. We're going to give you all a pop quiz. You ready for this one? Great. First question. What's the tool you would use to navigate your data with an unconventional navigation interface? I heard it? Visio, excellent. What about the most popular desktop reporting tool out there? You guys nailed that one, thank you. All right, let's make it a little harder. What about if you want to automate your documents? So you can create a status report template, pull that Excel data in there in real time. REST API, out of the box, you've got it, just start using it. Great. What about if you want to take your project server data and put it into a SharePoint list, make it accessible via search? BCS, Business Connectivity Services, excellent. Someone here is paying attention, I can tell. How about a web interface that allows our users to pull the data in and then drill down into it? Performance Point, we'll be talking a lot more about that tomorrow. And then finally, trick question here, provide predefined static reports by subscription, i.e., I've got users that want a report to come to them by email every Friday at 5:15 o'clock, or 5:15 p.m. SSRS, right? And we didn't talk about that much today, but typically, when you start looking at all the available options, a lot of the stuff you can do with SSRS, you can now do with Excel, you can do with Visio. Where SSRS comes in is really when we've got predefined data requirements. There we are, in case you want to take a picture. Excellent. As far as additional resources, in the next 15 minutes or so, a blog post will go out with links to the instructions for everything we showed you today, including links to all the queries we used in all the ODC files. Feel free to download it, implement it. Ping us with questions or feedback on there. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, forgot to mention. I actually wrote a white paper that actually covers most of this stuff. Feel free to go download that. As far as additional or related sessions, I think tomorrow Treb Gatt's doing a hands-on lab on BI where he's going to cover a lot of this stuff. We're talking right after lunch, a fantastic time. Right after lunch, we will be talking about taking your reporting to the next level with, again, some more performance point. And if you're really a glutton for punishment, on Thursday morning, I'll be talking about earned value. Everyone's favorite topic. Yeah. And then I believe Thursday, there's also a case study on tracking historical data. Please attend those sessions. Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Our contact information is there. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you.